Now I'd like to call our panelists and our moderator up to the stage. Our moderator, Meredith Ching, is the Executive Vice President of External Affairs at Alexander & Baldwin. She is a longtime employee of A&B, joining the company when she was a baby just 40 years ago. She holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Stanford University and a master's degree in business administration from UCLA. Meredith currently serves on numerous nonprofit boards, including the Hawaii Agricultural Foundation, Hawaii Food and Wine Festival, Kapiolani Health Foundation, and the A&B Sugar Museum. Please welcome our moderator, Meredith Ching.
Good evening, and thank you, Denise. I'm excited to be here and just to see people again, face to face in person after so long. So my job first is to introduce you to our three esteemed panelists. And when I introduce each of you, if you could just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what your role is in ag, et cetera. So I'll start with Alan. First, Alan Gottlieb of Second City Property Management. Alan manages the Hawaii Agricultural Foundation's Kunia Ag Park and also the Kunia Water Association. So Alan?
As she said, Meredith said that I've been involved in Hawaii agriculture for about 42 years. Anyone who knows me knows I wear many hats. Tonight I'm here to discuss the several thousand acres of agricultural land and water systems that we manage on Oahu for both small and large farmers. Maybe a little out of place because this has been kind of a Maui-centric talk, but I'll try to tell you a little bit about what we do.
Thank you, Alan. Next, Senator Lynn Tekoit, Hawaii State Senator for the 7th District, and that's Maui, Molokai, Lanai, and Kaho'olawe. She's a third-generation homestead farmer and rancher. Lynn?
Hi, aloha everybody, and thank you for having us here tonight on the panel. I'm a farmer and a rancher on the island of Molokai. Started serving at the state legislature in 2015 as a House of Representative, and then became a state senator last year, appointed by the governor. I spent a lot of time working out of Honolulu. When I go home on the weekends, my family basically runs the farm and the ranch during the weekdays. Farming has been really difficult, and ranching, working from a distance, so it's been really refreshing to have the next generation of my two boys to be working there, and I look forward to talking more about it on the panel tonight. So mahalo for coming. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Lynn. And last but certainly not least, Warren Watanabe, Executive Director of the Maui County Farm Bureau.
Good evening, everyone. I was a third-generation farmer up in Kula on Maui. My parents started out growing carnations and then changed over to vegetables. Being in farming was a very difficult transition. I think, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. And as you all know, every parent's dream is to have their kids have a job better than them. And my parents did not want any of us to return to the farm, but I did. And I'll tell you, though, how things have changed. I know some farmers and ranchers are struggling now, but when I returned and graduated from UH Manoa and returned to the farm, diversified agriculture was doing very well in the state of Hawaii. And, like I said, times have changed. It's gotten more difficult, but I still see a strong future for diversified agriculture, and I think forums like this will help spread that message. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. So as you all can see, there's a lot of on-the-ground expertise here in farming and a lot of very hopeful outlooks. So we're going to start asking them some questions. I'm going to be going through 3 rounds of questions and asking each panelist to take about 3 minutes to respond to each question. So again, I'm going to start with Alan. Alan, can you provide some history about the formation of the Hawaii Ag Foundation's Ag Park at Kunia? And since you're in the business of managing lands, can you tell us about some of the other new initiatives happening on the Kunia Play or on Oahu that will help move diversified ag forward?
Okay, thank you. I made some notes. I wanted to try to stay on track because we've only got 3 minutes, and I also wanted to cover as many politically incorrect things as I could during my time. So the Kunia Ag Parks were formed about 15 years ago. Campbell Estate had subdivided and sold off all of its ag land above H1 Freeway, previously farmed by Oahu Sugar in Lower Kunia and Del Monte Plantation in Upper Kunia. And they subdivided that into 9 large sections. The lands above Waihole Ditch was formed into the Kunia Water Association, which our company also manages. Senator Dan Inouye had helped orchestrate a deal for a partnership of the Army and Actis Lend-Lease to purchase 2,000 acres of that land adjacent to the southern boundary of Schofield. That partnership, now known as Island Palm Communities, planned to rent the agricultural land to a large ag enterprise, but Senator Inouye required there be a provision for small farmers on this land. The original operator of the ag parks was the Pacific Gateway Center, who catered to immigrants who had been uprooted and displaced. The Hawaii Ag Foundation also had some of the land. When PGC could no longer manage the ag parks, HAF, Hawaii Ag Foundation, took over and now runs the 4 ag parks. There's currently 20 farms on 192 acres of land in the ag parks, with farms ranging in size from 1 to 29 acres. Most of the farms are about 5 acres. There are currently no vacancies. The large tenant of the IPC property is currently Bear, and they are instrumental to the success of the ag parks. Bear assists in much of the infrastructure maintenance, and these small farms would not succeed without the assistance of Bear. As far as new initiatives to help diversified agriculture move forward, there have been plans for a Hawaii Department of Agriculture ag park in Lower Kunia, and those plans have been around for probably about 20 years, if not more. The ag park is proposed to have paved roads and a cluster of farm worker housing, but I understand the budget is over $50 million, which the legislature has yet to have funded. Another big project on Oahu is the Agricultural Development Corporation, better known as ADC, which manages over 2,500 acres in Wahiawa, currently leased to about 20 farmers. That's it.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, Senator Lynn. Molokai, like Maui, has a history of sugar and pineapple. I think yours disappeared about in the 1970s. Can you tell us about what has since replaced the plantation crops and whether progress has been made towards a more sustainable agricultural industry on Molokai?
So thank you for that, Meredith. So when sugarcane disappeared and pineapple, it was clear that, that was the #1 crop. And if you were to figure out why those crops aren't grown today, it was pushed out. And you have a really hard time trying to do a recovery of crops that actually make money. It's been replaced now with papaya, sweet potatoes, and the seed corn industry, of which one of the seed corn industries actually went out. It's really difficult when you don't have a balance of big business and small business, especially on an island like Molokai where we import everything, irrigation supplies, fertilizers. The challenges are just trying to stay afloat with having businesses to buy in bulk. Before we could buy a bag of fertilizer for like $12, we're paying about $40-something a bag of fertilizer. Your irrigation supplies that used to run you anywhere from 50 cents on a coupling can run you up to $4. While we have the small people doing small backyard farming and gardening, it still isn't enough to truly sustain itself. You have the cattle industry there, and of course, just too recently, this is the 3rd time we've been hit with tuberculosis, bovine. Challenges what Darren shared earlier, axis deer that has ravaged most of our farms. It's been really tough to keep those crops growing. Making sure that you have the right tools and equipment and fencing up to protect those crops. All too often, many people look at farming as not so much of an admirable profession, and it really is. We've been lucky to have many of you here that have actually supported farming, have provided funding and grants to keep many of the companies afloat. But when you try to sustain yourself, you don't continuously fall back on a grant. That farm needs to eventually survive. It's a business. And we look towards the legislature in some shape or form whether it be for water transmissions, whether it be for funding ditches, whether it be for expansions of land. You gotta look at the company itself and what is the plan going forward and figure out what are the crops to grow in Hawaii. So in order to diversify crops, you gotta figure what does the market buy and truly take a look at some of those things prior to jumping in head first and figuring out halfway down the route that you've actually lost everything because you didn't plan it out correctly. And I say look to people that are successful and then take it from there and try to ask them for help. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, Warren, as Denise mentioned, Maui has a really long history of sugar and pineapple and was just central to the communities and the culture there, but that's different now. It's gone. So in addition to the progress being made by Mahi Pono, can you tell us about other farmers and diversified crops that have been successful on Maui? And what are some of the factors that have contributed to the success of those ag products?
Well, for diversified ag on Maui, I'll point out a couple crops that I think many of you may be familiar with. The number one is the Kula Maui onions. The farmers up in upcountry Maui recognized that they had a very important crop and a very valuable crop. And really, it came to a head, I think, and many of you may recall, was when the story about Frank Sinatra wanting a bag of Maui onions. And from there, it kind of took off. But what the farmers did to promote that Maui Kula onion was, we got a federal trademark. We trademarked that brand, Maui Kula onions. And that really protects the geographic growing area of Kula. And that, gives it a special recognition. And really, but that trademark really pushed the Kula Maui onions into more, I think, diversity and, gave the farmers really the pride that's instilled with them to put out a quality product. And again, the product has to be grown in a geographical area of Kula. The other thing crop I want to point out is the protea. Protea was a little known flower that came to Maui, and it gained its prominence, and I think this is key, by creating partnerships. And the credit goes to the University of Hawaii, College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, for developing new hybrids. And that really put Maui protea on the worldwide market. The other thing Darren is familiar with, I think, is the Halimali Pineapple Company, the Maui Gold Pineapple. I mean, it's an excellent low-acid pineapple. And again, the branding of the Maui name. So I think those are three examples of successful agricultural crops that is recognized on Maui.
Thanks, Warren. Good examples. Okay, we're going to move on to round two. So, Alan, the ag park model seems to be working in terms of making ag lands as well as other resources available to small farmers. Do you think this model should be replicated in other parts of the state to support diversified ag? And if yes, what more can be done?
Thanks for that question. Okay, so the Ag Park model at the Hawaii Ag Foundation and as discussed at Mahi Pono are unique, as you had private large landowners who were committed to leasing to small farmers. The state Ag Park model has been successful for many years all over the state, but at the high current cost of development of a heavily improved ag park, we may never see a new ag park in Hawaii. The Hawaii Department of Agriculture's non-ag park program leases state land to small, medium, and large-sized farmers around the state. And ADC's project seems to be going in the right direction, but like many state endeavors, are slow to develop. Much of Hawaii's ag land is held within DLNR, who has resisted following the law codified in Act 90 in 2003, 19 years ago, which required state ag land be transferred to the Hawaii Department of Agriculture. But if I get started on that, we'll be here all night. Generally, private landowners who want to or have to keep their land in agriculture would rather lease to one or two large farmers than deal with many small farmers and the management headaches that come with that. Kamehameha Schools is another large landowner who has for many years been developing and implementing plans to lease its land for farming, large and small. If the state of Hawaii wants to encourage more small farms other than buying and managing ag parks, perhaps it can incentivize large private landowners to rent to small farmers and provide housing for the small farmers that are working the lands, perhaps in exchange for upzoning some of its other lands or other incentives.
Thanks, Alan. So that kind of segues into the question for Lynn, which is that many ag bills were introduced during the 2022 legislative session. Can you share with us some of the more significant pieces of legislation that are expected to pass and how it's envisioned to help local ag producers succeed in Hawaii? And I guess I would add also to this, maybe even tell us about the bills that aren't going to pass that could have helped small farmers, and maybe we'll see the light of day in the future, right?
Okay, so if you guys see me looking at my phone, it's because we got a conference going on, and I've been called to answer to some of those money bills right now. So, you know, we have everything from food safety bills going on. You talk about incentives, and I mean, incentives to big landowners would be IAL lands, important ag lands. Part of the incentives with that, and Mahi Pona is also benefits of that, is important ag lands also come with the commitment of water. If you look at small farms, if they're not on IAL lands, those lands do not come with the commitment of water. I always believe that small farms, it takes many small farms also to be supportive, and big farms to support those small farms also, because there are niche markets that the big farms will not tend to, yeah? So we gotta keep in mind that there needs to be a balance of small farms and big farms. So some of those bills that are sitting before us, you're looking at matching grants, 50% matching grants. You're looking at everything from helping with equipment, helping purchase these small equipments for different cooperatives, you know, and you're looking for funding to also help with the protection of crops with access deer. Some of those bills will be moved into the budget. And this also helped the big landowners and big farmers. You talk about ranching. A lot of those ranches have also been hit with problems such as that. Transports, you're looking at transportation incentives. Young Brothers also provides those incentives for some of the ranching, as well as food, transportation, and locally grown produce. So, you know, there's a whole array of bills, and we will not know due to what had just happened in some of the court cases until the budget can be solved and incorporate some of those lawsuits that have been pending. But there are several bills still sitting on the table, and we won't know till Friday at 6 p.m. for the bulk of them. But I gotta say, you know, when we talk about big business, we wanna make sure also in big business does move into the islands, that they be also respectful of the smaller businesses and do not flood them out. And Warren, I mean, even up in Kula, I mean, we've had big farms that actually ran many of the Kula farmers out of business. So, you know, it should be talked about, because I believe that farms should work together, whether you're big or small, and you should have that in place so that you don't run the small mom and pop out as we have with big box stores and stuff. So it's good to make sure that even with legislation going forward, that part of that legislation is reflective of the majority of the farms and of ranchers that are there too. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. So Warren, you know this better than anybody else because your mission is to help farmers, but farmers across the state face many challenges, including low yield on investments, more stringent food safety and health regulations, increased competition on price with imports, and new technologies in agriculture. So looking to the future, what should we be doing in education to help our students who aspire to be farmers to face those challenges or be aware of them so that they can continue to pursue an agricultural career?
Well, the Maui County Farm Bill, we do have an Ag in the Classroom program. It's tailored for second grade students, and it's open to all schools in Maui, on Maui. I know that it may seem that kind of young to start these kids, but it's just an introduction to where food comes from, how plants grow, and just a basic knowledge. we also have partnered with the Department of Education on our farm in Keokea. This is an old area where the old Keokea school was located. We transformed that into a farm. Unfortunately, with COVID, we haven't been able to get the kids out there, but we will do, hopefully, maybe next year. As far as education too, but I think what we need to get over with is, when I grew up on a farm, everything was hand labor, right? And if you look at agriculture, in Hawaii, across the nation, and even the whole world, technology is playing a very important role. Whether it's developing new seeds, seed technology, whether it's GMOs, gene editing, to even conventional breeding. The technology to advance and adapt to climate change. I think we're all familiar with climate change. And so the farmers need to be tech savvy. We're looking at, I've seen recent publications about robotics to help weed the fields. And that's where we need our students to look also. It's not just doing the handwork. It's being able to do research to advance agriculture even more, to even produce more on less. And that helps preserve our resources. So I think that's where education needs to go to. I'm not sure where Department of Education is on this, but we need more students in agriculture. I always tell when I testify, agriculture has changed. Our farmers and ranchers are not like my parents' generation. My dad only had an 8th grade education. Our farmers and ranchers, and I keep telling our policymakers, are professionals, just like a doctor or any other profession. And I think that's where policymakers and the general public needs to make that recognition. We are professionals in the field. Thank you.
I agree totally. Thank you, Warren. Okay, thank you, panelists. We're in our final round. So, Alan, this is a statistics I think will surprise some, but I know you're familiar with it. With 12% of our farmers producing 90% of our food, which means that most of our farmers are very small producers, what more can be done in terms of incentives or support to encourage farmers to take the risks involved with scaling up?
Thanks for that question. Let me repeat that statistic in case you didn't hear it. 12% of the farmers in Hawaii are producing 90% of our food. That statistic speaks volumes, in my opinion. The state has missed the mark on setting priorities to expand agriculture. Many today believe big farmers are bad and the future is small farmers. I believe we need to encourage and support farmers of all sizes, large, medium, and small. We also have to stop putting organic agriculture above conventional and science-based agriculture. All have their pros and cons, but well-rounded farms, no matter what method they use, are positive on so many fronts. From my experience, 99% of the small farmers are content on being on 1 to 5 acres of land and servicing their existing markets. I have seen many actually resisting scaling or any attempt to reach new markets, even when provided that opportunity. There are certainly examples of entrepreneurial families who have started very small and have scaled over the years. Often, it's the second generation. The Sioux of a Loon Farm and the Hoes come to mind as two good examples of this. There are also some examples of entrepreneurs like Jason Brandt of Kohana Rum, who start their concepts small and have scaled up. As far as leadership from our elected officials, other than my friend here, Senator DeCoit, there are few who get it and understand agriculture. In my opinion, there's a lot of lip service and baseless plans from our elected officials to help agriculture. More often than not, they put barriers in front of the food producers in our state. They have mixed and often confused priorities and allow such things as energy projects or talk about landfills on prime agricultural lands, because it's cheaper to develop them there than on slopes. Anyone who believes a few sheep grazing between PV panels is equivalent to the productivity of an intensely farmed vegetable farm should come speak with me. 1% of the people in our country grow the food for the other 99%. Let's support them rather than have non-farmers telling them how to do their back-breaking jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Okay, Senator DeCoit. So there's been much divisiveness and opposition towards many proposed economic development strategies on Molokai. So do you see diversified agriculture, specifically food crops, as a solution for revitalizing Molokai's economy and creating jobs for the local residents?
You know, so let me just say this. You know, there has been many diversified crops attempted to be grown. There are probably, like I said, you might have a little bit of taro, you might have, you know, papaya, sweet potato, which, you know, as one of the largest family-owned businesses in the state of Hawaii, as of ours, cattle is part of that diversified crop, as well as the seed corn industry. But economically wise, it cannot stand on its own. You know, it needs to be on a bigger scale. You have huge tracts of land, Hawaiian homelands. You have an ag park of 1,000 acres, which have been used. You got some pesto going on. You know, it's diversified, but not at the scale that it needs to really stand on its own 2 feet. So living on Molokai and having to represent only Kanu District, Molokai, Maui, and Lanai, is trying to figure out where's the balance, because most of our taxpayers' dollars comes from here, you know, and it's really not, as many people that have come to Molokai have said, you know, you guys from the Friendly Isle, but you guys not too friendly with your guys' signs. And like my friend next to me, you know, I gotta agree with a lot of what he says. You know, we have signs there that says, come to Molokai, spend your money and go home. And it's not reflective of all of us, yeah? One of those signs actually sits on Kamehameha school lands. But, you know, we need to diversify. We need to encourage people to grow. But, you know, there is a lot of lip service. And if you're not going to put your money where your mouth is, or at least put your labor in it, we'll never be able to diversify at the scale we should. And we will never really sustain ourselves because we continue to constantly ask for funds. And I always believe that if it is sustainable, then why are you asking for funds to sustain, you know, an industry, when if you come to me with a plan that says this plan will work, then my plan is take it to CPB, but take it to the bank. But, you know, there's a lot of options out there for us to diversify, and we really need to take a look at everything that we have, because the number one thing that we do have right now is we have access to land and we have access to water. Two of the most important things that is needed in farming and in the diversification of food, seed, whatever it might be, because we need an economic driver of jobs that comes with a lot of that. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Warren. The Grown on Maui initiative that the Maui County Farm Bureau spearheads in partnership with the county seeks to expand the market share of local farmers. Tell us why this program is important and how it supports local farmers in increasing their market share and perhaps increasing the value of their crop through branding.
Okay, yeah, the Maui County Farm Bureau, we do have a Grown on Maui program in partnership with the County of Maui Office of Economic Development. You know, this partnership started way back, I believe even when Senator Baker was our coordinator. But anyway, I think the COVID, the past few years have indicated why we need a strong marketing program. And I think, you know, we try to partner also with the Maui Chamber of Commerce. But the reason why I say that is because I think, I'm not sure if all of you are aware, but, you know, when COVID first occurred, the farmers and the ranchers in the state of Hawaii really lost their market overnight. Many of our farmers were so dependent on the tourist industry and supplying the hotels or restaurants with products. When it all collapsed, many of them had nowhere to go. And I have a farmer on Maui who completely stopped all of his plantings his total market was the tourism industry. And so, with the Growing Up Maui, I told the county, I told my board of directors, we need to relook at what we're doing. And we're putting the emphasis on the local community, you folks, to support our local farmers and ranchers. And that's, we have farmers and ranchers supplying the retail markets. Go to the retail markets and ask for a Hawaii-grown product or Maui-grown product. And I think that goes a long way. I know, there is some hesitancy. I faced it. We've been told that, the local farmers are too unreliable, they're inconsistent, their quality may come into question. But I will tell you, our farmers and ranchers have their pride, and they do put out quality products. And I ask you again, and that's why our campaign will only be as successful as the support of the community.
Thank you, Warren. And thank you, Lynn and Alan and Darren, for all the information, expertise, and clear passion for local agriculture that you've shared with us tonight. It's a passion that I share. And I'm sure it sparked a lot of questions in the audience, so we're going to get started with a Q&A session. So if you could please raise your hand if you have a question, and a staff member will hand you a microphone. Questions?
I know you guys try to help, a big farm, try to help small farmers, right? To grow and stuff like that. But I think one of the things that I see as a major problem with growing agriculture in Hawaii is our lack of access to technology and new innovative methods of growing, which, you guys probably have a better handle on it, having partners in California that grow things. Is there a way that you guys can put out and give information to farmers about the technologies that you guys are using to save water, for example, to conserve our natural resources in growing the products that they want to grow?
Yeah, that's a great question, and really a couple things. First of all, the technology that we've implemented on our farm is just out of this world different than what a lot of small farmers are doing. And so we've taken an approach to it. We can't survive at our scale if we're relying on moving forward doing things by hand. We're not going to find enough workers. We're not going to be able to have the scale to do that. So we're really forced to invest in technology. Our tractors are basically drive themselves. They're GPS. And it's really kind of mind-blowing when the field is laid out and the tractors steer themselves, because I don't know how to operate them. But the 22-year-old kid that's driving the tractor is an expert at it. And so the training and those kind of things that are being implemented, and the reason why small farmers aren't doing that is really the magnitude of the investment, I think. And so I can bring farmers out and they can look at that technology and say, that's really cool, but can they afford to go spend, $150,000, $200,000 on a tractor? And I think the answer is they could if they really understood what it was going to save them in the future. I think it's a solid investment in technology because you're going to save on that labor into the future. And we need to, we can show that practice, and we can show farmers how our water system works and how our tractors work, and a lot of the technology that we have implemented. But farmers need to kind of, I guess, take that to the bank and say, I need help investing in this technology. A good example is the water system at our egg park is a very outdated water system, and our farmers in the Maui Egg Park are paying a lot of money for really inadequate water system. For $100,000, $120,000, we could, we've put on some of our small farms in our egg park, VFD pumps and on-demand pumps that, save water, have the right pressure at the right time, and those kind of technologies. So, yeah, we can show people that. Farmers I think they need to be able to take to the bank and get access to money so that they can make those investments.
Thank you. Other questions?
I work for a food retailer, and you raised the question about the retail on the one side not getting enough supply, and farmers saying that they can't sell all of their product. And I'm wondering if you could talk more about what you're doing to solve that problem.
I think that's a problem, I mean, even for our farmers on Maui, for all of them. The one thing that we've done as an industry is the Local Issues or the Grown on Maui program really addresses that. And it's really allowing farmers and purchasers to communicate, giving them a space to have this communication about what they need and what they, what they need at their store, at their restaurant, at the school lunch, or all those kind of things. So there just needs to be a platform to have that conversation. So the Grown on Maui and the Local Issues programs really allow a place for that to happen. And that benefits a large farm like us just as much as it does a smaller farm to keep that conversation active. I think when I said we're responsive to the market is the best example. So I think whether you're a big farmer, a small farmer, a lot of our farmers aren't willing to change. It was kind of touched on a little bit up here. They've been doing the same type of farming for years. And the market is changing. People want their food grown differently. They want different products. And so, we're willing to adapt to that. We're going to meet with our customers and make those changes. And I think I think other farmers need to start to do that too. I read a great story about Jerry Ross growing garlic on Maui. I mean, that's an example of a new crop that's being grown, and he's having quite a bit of success with it. So, I don't know. Number one, a place to have that conversation for everybody, and number two, a willingness to change and move into new places.
So Darren, can I just follow up on that question a little bit? Because I think it's about matching the farmer with the customer, right, the buyer. But don't you guys have like a chef's garden, or can you tell everybody about that a little?
Yeah. Exactly. So with the Hawaii Egg Foundation, we started a project with 5 chefs on Maui. And the intention was, we started with a conversation. Give us a list of 5 or 6 items that you want farmers to grow to grow in your restaurant. Now, we're not playing around. We want to sell these to you at the end of this project. And what's the list? And so we had quite a conversation. No, I can't grow baby corn. Or nor do I want to harvest an acre of baby corn, which is just corn that you harvest when it's a little tiny corn. And you're better off to buy that in the store in a can, maybe. But yeah, we can grow sweet potatoes, and we can scale up other crops. And so it was really a place to have that conversation. The chefs came to the farm, participated in it at whatever level they wanted to. So it was Chef Roy, Bev Gannon, TS Restaurants. And so we had chefs that were managing several restaurants, and we had chefs that are managing just one restaurant. They all have different needs. So can we grow, these products at a scale to feed several restaurants across the state? Yeah, we could try that. And can we grow a specialty product to be on the menu 1 or 2 days a week at a smaller restaurant? Yeah, we could do that. So that was the purpose of that project. I think it was successful. We're going to try it again into the next year and actually try to scale it up to include more chef partners and more restaurants.
Thank you. That's great. Any other questions?
We have one here.
Can I add something to this?
Of course.
I mean, over the years, we've heard a million reasons why a chef or a store doesn't want to buy a local product. But we've also seen some really innovative chefs that work to buy local product. And they understand that they're not going to have the same thing on their shelf or coming to their restaurant 52 weeks out of the year. They're going to understand when there's bad weather and entire crops die. They're going to ask the farmer, what fresh thing do you have for me today? I will incorporate that into my menu. So I just wanted to add that. There's definitely different folks that we have to deal with out there, but that's the difference, the two models that we're faced with.
So let me finish up. So basically, it's consistency, yeah? So if it's a big farmer, it's a small farmer, if they have that market or they have that direct connection, if the consistency isn't there, that they can supply it every week, it then becomes a challenge where now that store or that chef has to then outsource. What they don't want to be is left without, yeah? Especially if it's, say, Molokai sweet potatoes on a menu. If it's Dino Kimoto when he used to do his crops, and they have it by name, it's hard to then alter that menu or to then change that off in a store, which is why if that small farmer, or whether it's a big farmer, have those certain two markets, they'll make sure that they want that consistency there because they're specializing in it. Without the consistency, it's gonna make it really hard for them to start just jumping all over, and eventually they'll lose that market, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, question in the back.
Yeah, for the senator from Molokai, I'm one of the people that like to go and visit Molokai, and I do spend my money there. I wish the hotel at Kuluakoi was still there because I enjoyed golfing and hitting my balls in the opposite fairway. I'm trying to be a farmer, and I thought pigs were kind of cute until they ate my lotus crop. So now most of the pigs are in freezers. On Molokai with the access deer, and I have ordered local deer in some of the better restaurants. Is there a way where possibly you could be harvesting them on Molokai? Many of my employees in the past actually grew up on Molokai, but they couldn't find work there. It seems like that hunting kind of background that many of them have might be put to good use, you know, as far as if the deer could be processed in a slaughterhouse and then sold to local restaurants or made available rather than eradicated, which I think is the current plan.
So there is deer actually being harvested on Molokai, and it's actually being sold here on Oahu. So there is somebody that's actually catch them, and then they, because you can actually hunt your own deer and eat it yourself, but if you're wanting to buy it, it then has to be done within an hour of a headshot, and then you have to have a federal inspector on board. So if you do have friends or family that is on Molokai, I would suggest you do it that way, because the process of it actually going through the slaughterhouse with a lot of the cattle being backed up right now is going to be a long process. So the individual person that is there, and I can get his name to you later if you are interested in buying access there from a certified processor.
Okay, questions?
Warren, you talked about how the cessation of tourism, the immediate end of tourism at the beginning of COVID impacted farmers. I think a lot of us recognized and appreciated how creative not only the farmers and the restaurant industry was, but a lot of the different island farm bureaus. You know, they created programs to just try to keep the farmers going, and as all of you, I think, had mentioned the value of the farm to shopper experience. But I mean, do farmers need tourism to bounce back? Is tourism, you know, coming back an important part of a lot of the farmers' business plans, or have they been able to pivot to a local market? And I guess I would offer that question to anyone who has some thoughts on that.
Well, you know, when COVID first hit, and I really appreciate our county government and Mayor Victorino. And I think here on Oahu, with the Hawaii Farm Bureau and Brian Miyamoto and Mayor Caldwell, what they did was get with the federal funding that was provided, they were able to purchase products from the farmers and ranchers to distribute to the community in need. And I think that was an excellent partnership, and it shows where different levels of government can work together and, you know, to meet the needs of the community. And that really, I've had comments from my farmers saying that, you know, that really saved them during this tough time. You know, hopefully with tourism comes back, but what I'm trying to stress with the Grown on Maui is a balance. You know, you can't put all your eggs in one basket, right? We've all heard that. And so the farmers really need to look at what their marketing program is and how they're going to sustain it long term. You know, who knows where tourism will go? But what I think is more constant is our local population. And, you know, the governor put out that mandate, you know, to double local food production. But, you know, the farmers and ranchers can, you know, work towards that goal. But if they can't sell their product, you end up in the same place that you started. And that's why I think it's extremely important. Yeah, you know, local may cost more at times, but we do supply a fresher product, a quality product, and I think everyone will be happy with our local product. And so I think that's the way it is, but I think it needs to be a balance between the tourism and supplying the hotels and restaurants and the support of the local community in our retail markets or your farmers market, wherever you're purchasing your product.
So I just want to follow up on that. Yes, tourism is the farmers depended on tourism, and many of our farms went down, and thank goodness it was a partnership with many farms, with government, with county aid, with in fact many of you guys here that had put funds behind there that purchased most of those products. Maipono did an excellent job on supporting across the county of Maui. I mean, they shipped a lot of their stuffs to help people in Hana, Lanai, Molokai, and vice versa. You know, the beef industry stepped up to the plate to also donate. Many of your companies actually bought a lot of the products from a lot of those farms. And even as we start to recover today, you know, it's really clear you have technology. And I think for most of us that have grown products, it's learning how to value add and take it to the next level. Because while people might feel that, well, you can be growing the same product, it's about working together and figuring out what is the next level, because the average person that is going to farm is not going to want to value add. So you can get the person that like it dirty, and in this case, in today's technology, we've been replacing our workforce literally with machines. During COVID, we had a hard time finding workers. And then when we finally got back going, most of us even had our challenges with hiring workers at $15, $16, $17 an hour. I mean, till today, it's been a challenge, but tourism was heavily dependent for us on getting our farms back in order. And if you were a single commodity grower, it made it even hard because you didn't have a bumper crop. And for a lot of the products on the market today, if you're carrying long-term crops, whether it be sweet potato, whether it be taro, now you gotta figure out if you can survive weather, pests, and everything else to then get one downward spiral of another variant. So those that came back up again went back down when we had the next shutdown in government, and it made it really hard because when tourism wasn't here, food wasn't being sold. And then if you take a look at like an island like Molokai, we just do the barter thing. It's like, okay, you're going fishing, we're going, you know, you're going hunting, but here, you guys, I mean, what you get for shoot but each other, I mean, not like you guys can eat each other, but, you know, like, you know, so it's about like working together, working with big companies to figure it out, because, I mean, as Alan said, state government, they don't get it yet. I mean, we saw what we went through, and still, if you look at what's happening, even within going forward, without food, water, and shelter, we've missed the mark miserably. And you can only beat the dead dog so many times. So that's kind of where we're at. But to that question, it is heavily dependent upon tourism.
Thanks. Can I add? I mean, the question of do we need tourism to bounce back? I think it's yes, and especially, I think on the neighbor islands. You know, most farmers on Maui, their main customers are probably restaurants and visitors, and there's a higher margin to that. But I think a good example is, when we grow watermelon, I need to sell as much of that watermelon as I can. If there's 100 watermelons to sell, maybe 60 of them are going to the retailer. They're going to Costco because they're beautiful, they're the perfect size. I can put a sticker on them and I can brand them at Costco. But I still have 40 that maybe don't look so good, and they can go to a restaurant, they can get cut and used at bars, and maybe they can go to the school lunch program. And so the tourism and the restaurants are an important part of what Warren said, that balance. And that's important to farmers to sell all of what they grow and not just a part of it into a special market.
Okay, can I get one more question? Yeah, one in the back, yeah.
So, thank you. One is going to take the passion of that individual. The incentivizing has been incentivized, 10 times over. At the state level, we do GIAs. We give out grants. We provided bills for organic farming at small scale levels. You talk about equipment and incentivizing. At some point, you can't keep getting 10 different people coming in for the same 10 different equipment, yeah. So cooperatives are good. Nonprofit organizations have also been a part of it. One of the organizations that, like take Ulupono, for example, even the farm bureaus and stuff, they put on a lot of different programs, but really the individuals, the biggest problem we get is they don't like work together. One is always grumbling about the other one instead of if they just do their thing, because what you cannot have is you cannot have a cooperative with everybody that's farming it wants to also be the operator of the equipment. Because I will promise you, 99.9% of the time, they don't know how to run on tractor and it'll come back broken and they'll literally leave it there. And then the next guy comes to use it, which is why if you do something like that, you need to hire an operator and mechanic separately and then go out and do what you gotta do. But you get all too often that if it's a small farm, they like buy the biggest tractor. And you cannot run on 200 horse tractor in like 1/2 acre parcel. So, it needs to be unified where the type of equipment that is used to do land prepping, weeding, these cultivators and stuff, it should be on that small scale. But then the people that are reading the proposal and are granting the money, they're not farming themselves. So you have to have that specialized individual that has background on the approval of some of these things that are trying to help the small guys. In our minds, even at the legislature, it's like, oh, this is a great idea, but does a guy know anything about it? You wouldn't call a plumber to go doing brain surgery on you, and that's kind of where we're at the legislature. It's, you're trying to say, this is great, we want people to grow food, but have the right people doing the education process. If there's a successful farmer, put the guy there. Have him understand that this is the type of equipment that is used. CTAR is great, but we got duplication of stuff, and don't get me started on that, because if not, we'll bring Donna Mercado here about UH again. But, get the right people so that we make sure that we can help people the right way versus, everybody going in different directions and you get the tail at the head of the line. It needs to be, taught. And I would always say this, we always have programs to teach in the classroom. I always say, let's take you to the farm first. Classroom stuff can come later. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a big round of applause for tonight's speakers? And feel free to have ask your questions. They'll be hanging around in the cocktail area, but I'll call Denise Yamaguchi back to the stage now. Thank you.
Let's give a round of applause for Meredith Ching. She did a great job tonight. And I also want to thank our panelists, Alan Gottlieb, Senator DeCoy, and Warren Watanabe. You guys did an amazing job, and thank you to our keynote speaker, Darren Strand from Mahipono, on leading the discussion on moving our plantation past to a diversified and sustainable agricultural future. I also am going to thank our chef. We have some meals that have been prepared for later on, and we have Chef Andrew Lay and his team from Pig and the Lady who had put this plantation-themed meal together. We encourage you to stay tonight and continue the conversation, and we hope you gain even more insight by networking with those around you. Before I end, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my cookbook, Keiki in the Kitchen. It was created by 39 local chefs, and the book seeks to inspire kids to learn about where food comes from and about the importance of supporting local farmers. Our limited edition collection of books and merchandise will be available for purchase at the check-in, and all the proceeds from that book go to Hawaii Agricultural Foundation's ag education programs in the public schools. And again, mahalo to our presenting sponsor, Central Pacific Bank and Alaska Airlines, along with our other sponsors for making Eat, Think, Drink possible. On behalf of the Hawaii Agricultural Foundation, thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of the evening. Good job.